Hey, everybody, and welcome back here to another exciting interview. And today we have with us Michael Camino, who is running for the Tobyhanna Township Supervisor. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here, Jim.
Awesome, dude. I'm glad to see that you were able to come out to our studios here to talk to us today, one on one.
Yeah.
And so first off, let's kind of get into tell me a little bit about you before I get into like all this whole you're running into politics thing. What do you do for a living?
So I'm a business owner. I own a IT services business. Um, Pretty good. I've been running it for the past 23 years. Love what I do. It's my passion, technology. I've served hundreds of customers, thousands worldwide. I have customers in 22 states at this point. Really happy about what I do. I moved up here recently, about 3.5 years ago, to Tobyhanna Township because I wanted to give my family a bit of a better life than back in Delaware.
All right. So you talk about family.
Yeah,
I guess I assume
family's the most important thing to me. My daughter Ella, my son Peppy, they're she's 10 and he's 4. They're great. Trying to give them basically a better chance. We have a really good school system up here, Pocono Mountain Regional, and I really want to give them best education they can get.
so that's where they're going to school
Yeah,
here in the area.
yeah.
Okay. And then you're married. So tell me a little bit about your wife.
Been married with my wife for 15 years now.
Okay.
Love my wife Debbie. She's a stay-at-home mom. She does really well, and she does also manage some real estate as well as her side profession.
Okay. So you've been up here now 3.5 years,
Yes, almost
and
4.
so almost four. So when's 4?
4 will be June,
All right.
June
So
15th.
so after the election that's
Yes,
coming up for you,
yes,
so that this will be like your 4-year anniversary present if
yes.
you were to kind of win a spot in the primary in the general.
Yeah, yeah. Debbie's really excited about the May 16th primary, and she's really excited. And my kids are right behind me. They were so excited to see me doing something good for our community.
Okay. So now what made you jump into politics? What made you want to become the one of the supervisors for Tobyhanna Township?
So I've spent a lot of my career volunteering. As part of my company, we actually do have 3 weeks of paid time off, specifically set aside for volunteer time. So everyone has 8 hours a week that they can donate on my company dime to do volunteering in our community because I strongly feel giving back to our community is vital as being a good person, a good human being. So, as part of that, I've done a lot of volunteer work with various organizations, the ASPCA, I've worked for American Red Cross, and several others, Southeastern Pennsylvania SPCA. And I'm a volunteer in multiple organizations. As part of that, I find it very fulfilling to give my time to help others, to help do something to improve our world. So when the opportunity came up, I spoke to a couple of my friends, family members, and they said this would be an excellent opportunity for me because they know I have a really big heart for doing what's best for the community. I've been volunteering for all 23 years of my company. Our entire history is nonstop every year. So I really want to give back, and this is not a paid position. The pay is basically nothing, and all that minimal pay is going to be donated back to our community. I've already earmarked it for the Clymer Library and the Tobyhanna Township Volunteer Fire Department to give back to our community because that's really what this is all about: our families, our community, our neighborhood.
All right, so talk to me about the fire department and why that's so important to you. Because as we know, there's some changes that are happening to the
Yeah.
fire department. So, kind of explain to me why this is so important to you.
We need a fire department that is functional within our community. Tobyhanna Township is not the city of Philadelphia. We don't have 15 different fire companies that can respond at a moment's notice if there's an emergency. Our fire department, people think fire department, they think fires. Our fire department does a lot more than just put out fires and rescue cats from trees. What they really are our first responders for almost any type of emergency that can happen outside of needing a police officer. So you have a car accident, the fire department responds. In my case, my daughter's special needs, and if there's a medical emergency, the fire department and the EMS are going to be the QMS responders, or who is going to respond to her if there's a problem at school, if something happens. So that happens with all of our kids. The Tobiana Township Volunteer Fire Department is within a mile and a half of TEC, Tobiana Elementary Center, which means they are literally seconds away if there's an emergency, if there's something that happens with our kids. And that's really what bothers me the most, is that there's a large part of our township that is not protected right now from any type of an emergency outside of police. The makeup of the lands of Tobiana, we have neighboring townships that can come in for some parts of our township. Like in the east side, we have Pocono Summit that can come in from Coolball and service them. On the south side, we have Tunkhannock that can come up. But the central location where Tobiana Township Volunteer Fire Department is, there's state game lands to the north, state game lands to the south. There is no other fire department that can respond to emergencies for pretty much a third of our township. So it's really critical for me to make sure all of our residents are protected.
Now, the incumbents,
Mhm.
David Carbone and Brendan Carroll,
Yes,
they both want to go to a paid fire department. Am I correct?
that is
with that?
correct.
Now, why would you want it to remain volunteer when there's the option for those to be paid? What is the difference between the two?
I mean, fiduciary responsibility is the first one. Tobiana Township Volunteer Fire Department has been in service for 94 years. It is among the top 8% in the state, beating out multiple paid fire departments. So these volunteers have exceeded the quality that paid departments are providing their townships and their cities. So, from a fiduciary responsibility, is my duty to try to make sure we spend our tax dollars like a sacred trust. We don't waste them on political grandstanding and so forth. So, our volunteer fire department is not just the best in the state, but they're relatively speaking free. They only get a small slither of their money from our township. The majority of their money that funds them, their equipment, is all raised by fundraisers, grants, and so forth. So the residents of Tobiana Township aren't really even paying more than the fire tax, which is, I think, about 3% right now, towards the fire department. The other 90% comes from separate grants and sources from the state, from federal, from county resources, from people like me and our community who go to their fundraisers, who donate to help them out. So they're costing us very little and giving us top quality service that we will not get from a paid fire department.
So why do the incumbents want this paid fire department then?
Ultimately, it comes down to a personal grudge, unfortunately. I, there's some bad blood between the fire department and the incumbents. Several of them have previously served on the fire department, but were removed in the past. So this is not the way to run a township, is running it based upon your personal grudges instead of what's best for our people. So they're looking to enlist, and they've actually formed now something fairly new that I'm not sure if you're aware of, if you've heard. They've actually formed a new fire department that's going to be paid out of our tax dollars. And our tax dollars obviously haven't been set aside for this. What that means is that my tax dollars, your tax dollars, all of our taxes are going to be going up in Tobiana Township to pay for this boondoggle.
So now the incumbents we're talking about are David Carbone and Brendan Carroll, who are
Yes.
both Republicans running on the Republican ticket,
Yes.
and they're looking to you're saying that two Republicans are looking to spend more taxpayer money. Republicans now.
Yes.
We're not talking about Democrats here.
Right.
We're not
Exactly.
talking about socialists. We're talking about actual Republicans.
I wouldn't call them actual
Well,
Republicans.
they're under the party
They
Republicans.
claim to be Republicans. Yes.
Now we know that David Carbone comes from New York, which is a dominantly Democrat state. But then again,
New York City, not just New York State, but New
I'm
York
sorry.
City.
I meant to say this.
Yeah.
Well, the state is as well, but the city, for sure.
Yes.
So this guy may not even really be a true Republican if he wants to spend taxpayer money on a public issue like this when we can just kind of
When
uh,
there's a working solution.
yeah, when
Right
there's a working
now,
solution.
the volunteer fire department has been idle since August. In their fire station, there is $6.5 million of fire equipment with cobwebs on it. That's a complete waste of our taxpayer dollars. $6.5 million of equipment. And Brendan Carroll and David Carbone have gone on television saying, we're going to form a new fire department and spend another $6.5 million of taxpayer money to get equivalent equipment.
There's a word, an acronym that seems like it kind of may fit these guys.
Hmm.
Republican in name. Republican in name only. That's what it sounds like to me.
Rhino, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be it.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's kind of get into the warehousing has become an issue
Yeah.
in Tobiana Town, and not just in Tobiana Township.
All
You know,
throughout the
I mean,
county.
I was just driving the whole state. I was just up in Leesport last week,
Yeah.
and I'm driving by a farm, and then right across from the farm, I think it was Amazon. Maybe it wasn't Amazon, but some giant warehouse across from a farm. Seems like warehousing is popping up everywhere in Pennsylvania, but it's definitely in Tobiana Township. It's becoming a major issue.
It is. It really is. There, out of the entire state of Pennsylvania, 80%, there's 2% of waterways are considered critical to the entire state. 80% of those waterways are in Monroe County. Our one county has 80% of the most protected waterways in the state. What that means is that your water, down in Stroudsburg, the water that flows down to the city of Philadelphia throughout the entire East Coast that comes from the Delaware, comes from the Pocono Mountains. It is spring water. Obviously, it gets filtered, but it is spring water. 80% of that water comes to our streams. Though that natural resources is what makes the Poconos special. That is where the warehouses are a triple threat to our community. One, they they will destroy hundreds, and they have destroyed hundreds of acres of old growth forests. These are forests that have been here since William Penn settled here in the 1600s. So we're talking 400, 500-year forests that are being chopped down for warehouses of various sorts. But warehouses aren't as bad as it gets. There are companies that will come in and say, we're going to install a warehouse. What they do later on, and this has been proven in other neighboring townships, they convert those to trucking terminals. So a warehouse is, 100,000 to 1 million square feet of storage space. You might have 3, 4 trucks a day, big trucks coming in and out to move inventory in and out. A trucking terminal is exactly that. It is a truck stop. It is where you have hundreds of trucks daily coming in and out, moving cargo. You don't store your cargo there. It really is a distribution hub. So when you have hundreds of trucks a day, that's diesel exhaust, that's sulfur, that's ammonia, that's oils. That is all of the dirt and grime from the entire East Coast washing away into our rivers and streams. It is an ecological disaster. It's been proven. Down in Easton, which is just down 73, you will see the terrible results of what has happened to Easton as a trucking depot. Their forests were destroyed, and now most of the water is actually they have to are converting a lot of the small wells are being converted to city water because the wells have been polluted. And what they're being polluted with is sulfur dioxide, which is leaching into the water from vehicles, from development. These aren't from your car, my car. This is from diesel exhaust, and this only comes from large, big rigs, which meet a different EPA standard than your standard pickup truck. So these warehouses are destroying our communities.
Now, with that said, devil's advocate,
Mhm.
is it bringing jobs to the community? Is it bringing good paying jobs to the community?
No. So the average job in the warehouses nearby is under $15 an hour. The McDonald's right outside my home on 940 pays $18 an hour. These are jobs where McDonald's is actually paying a better living wage than a worker. Now, and keep in mind, warehouse workers, you have to have forklift supervisors. You have all types of skilled labor. The skills require certifications, tests. So we're talking about skilled labor being paid less than my children would be making flipping burgers at McDonald's. That's not right. These are not high paying jobs. No one is making a living wage off of the warehouse that lives here. The only people that make money off warehouses are investors and commercial developers outside of our township that have no interest in protecting and no foothold to protect our environment. They're just coming in to make a quick buck because land is cheap.
Okay, so speaking of real estate developers, one of the incumbents is Brendan Carroll, who is a real estate developer.
Yes.
Do you think that maybe he has some interest?
He says he doesn't, but when someone makes their money for so many years building homes and strip malls and commercial development, you gotta have to ask, are they really looking out what's best for our township? Are they looking out for their friends and buddies who they've known for many years?
So technically, he should probably recuse himself,
He hasn't. He's
but he
voted on.
should. I mean, that would be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like if there was like a corrupt police situation in that happened in Tobyhanna Township,
Yeah.
then David Carbone should probably recuse himself as a guy that was in a lawsuit in
Multiple lawsuits.
New York City
Yeah.
that wasn't found guilty, but the city of New York had to pay out
Yeah. I mean,
$1.25 million or whatever it was.
yeah.
So if there was a police situation like that, then current incumbent David Carbone should recuse himself. And in this situation here with the real estate and the warehousing, Brendan Carroll should probably recuse himself. I mean, that's just
I mean, he.
my hot take on things here.
Well, I mean, he has connections to a lot of our commercial developers nearby. I mean, Kalahari and Great Wolf Lodge. I mean, he's got friends there, so it would really hurt his friends if he was not to vote for something that would benefit them.
So, but basically, he's no different than your typical politician in Washington D.C., or even Harrisburg, where someone's put in a position,
By
and it's a
commercial
lot,
interests, yeah.
and it's a lot easier to do in a small community like Tobyhanna Township to have a guy come in there with all these connections into the into this industry,
Yeah.
just like if we want to have a corrupt police force, there's one man for that job in this position, and that would be David Carbone.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. True Detective himself.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's interesting because I'm funding my entire campaign myself.
who's funding their campaigns? Do we know?
We've asked the question, and they don't want to answer who's funding their campaigns.
I think it would be interesting if and you are more than welcome to come in and sit on this show, both Brendan Carroll and David Carbone, and let me know so we can let the residents of Tobyhanna Township know who's actually funding your campaign. And it's more interesting to me who's funding Brendan Carroll's campaign. I mean, I know New York City's not funding Carbone because they already put $1.25 million out.
Yeah.
Thanks
For
to him.
framing innocent people. I mean, that was what the two lawsuits were.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes, that's true. Because again, no one admitted to any wrongdoing, but they did pay out the money. So,
Right. I mean, like if I hit your car and I said, "Here, Mike, here's $1,000," but I did not hit your car. Let's not tell the judge. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Follow the trail of slime to the snail is all I'll say.
We'll put the links to the article in the to the article for David Carbone in the comments. Okay, so let's get to libraries.
Yeah.
This seems to be a thing that is important to most communities, especially now.
Yeah.
In a world where it's technology is everywhere. It's not just books anymore, and not everyone has access to the technology.
Yeah.
Well, the libraries do.
Yes.
And
So in 2021, our current esteemed incumbents decided that it would be a smart idea to take a page from current policies and try to defund the library.
well, for both of them, it may make a lot of sense. And hear me out on this.
Okay.
For David Carbone, he doesn't want potential voters to be able to go to the library and look up old newspapers of him, or go on Google if they don't have access to the internet at their house, and find out information that he had to settle, thanks to the city of New York, for $1.25 million for framing innocent people.
Yes.
So I completely understand why he wouldn't want to have, library access to some. He'd want to defund it. And Brendan Carroll, I mean, he probably wants to not only just defund the library, but he's probably thinking, this could be a warehouse for my friend Joe down the street at the Wolf Lodge. So, I mean, I completely understand
Yeah.
why our incumbents here in Tobiana Township would wanted to fund the library. That's just me, and
Yeah.
it's all alleged.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say? The library sits on a beautiful plot of land. Who
Perfect for a
knows?
warehouse
They could make a warehouse, or again,
or a.
could be another strip mall. We could use another strip
I'm,
mall.
but tell me why you think it's important, though.
I mean, it.
I was going to say in
My,
all seriousness,
yeah.
but I could see both of those guys saying, "Let's defund this so no one can research us." But anyway, in all seriousness, why?
Well, so another interesting fact about that, about fiduciary responsibility, they tried to defund the library over $40,000. Our township spent with our solicitor over $100,000 trying to sue them over 40. We literally lost almost three times the amount in legal fees than the amount that was being disputed. And ultimately, at the end, the library won the court case. So we spent $100,000 on legal fees on something that was clear to everyone else in the township, that went straight to a judge, and he made a decision really quickly on that matter.
Who's funding this library at the moment? Is this
The
taxpayer
taxpayers,
funded?
yes.
Okay, so it's taxpayer funded. And how much? What percentage? What's the percentage on this?
I'm not sure the current millage rate, which is how we determine funding for libraries. But like I said, the difference between what we pay today as a township of about 9,000 individuals was $40,000. So that's what, maybe $40 a person? Roughly. We're talking really pennies that they made a big legal mess over trying to close the library. This one library is not just funded by Tobiana Township, it's also funded by Tunkhannock Township. So we're talking about a board that wanted to close a library that was critical not just to our residents, but to our neighbors, trying to scorch the earth, saying we don't want to help our neighbors become educated, to help them out. And the library does more than books. It has internet access. They have programs for people with disabilities. They provide so much more of a critical service that when people think libraries, they think books. Just like our fire department. Our fire department doesn't just put out fires, they do a lot more. Our library is a critical part of our community. And that's really what I think is missing here, is that these two individuals don't care about our community as a whole, our kids, our teachers, our business owners. They only care about corporate interests and their own.
Wrapping up, tell us, the people of Tobiana Township, why you should be elected to run in the general for supervisor.
I'm the best person for a job, for multiple reasons. The best reason really is I actually care about my community. I'm a board member of my HOA. I'm a volunteer of multiple organizations. I care. I have a family here. Why am I the best person for the supervisor? Because I actually am doing this on my own. I have no one backing me. I have no one that I've made promises to in exchange for my votes. I'm going to vote honestly and look at the full picture. But most of all, what I'm going to do is listen. And that's one thing that hasn't happened is listening to the people, giving the residents a voice in their government. And that is me. I am constantly soliciting feedback, constantly talking to people in the community all throughout, both online, on the phone, in person, meeting them at events, meeting them throughout the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and being a good community member. That is what separates me from the incumbents, is that I am sincere in my effort to improve our township and to do what our township needs to have happen, to look at the big picture and not be thrown to any one organization.
Okay, and before but I should have maybe asked this beforehand. You were telling me that people that are that would be supporting the incumbents
Mhm.
were prior, not recently, but they were previously kind of attacking you.
Yeah.
Um, why? What kind of folks are these people? Like, why are they attacking you? Uh, Are they former New York City police officers, or are they real estate developers?
I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are very passionate about their candidates, and I can't fault them for being passionate about who they feel they like. However, many of them have found that because I haven't engaged in negativity in the community, that they found the desire to make up stories, to make up Photoshop items about me that have never happened. So these are people that if you can't find anything, there's no dirt on me. I'm an open book. And I'm not going out and slinging mud about people's what people do in their personal
Yeah, I mean,
lives.
it's not like you're going around telling people, "Hey, David Carbone was a part of a $1.25 million lawsuit in New York City."
I'm not the one saying that, but
I am.
I definitely understand where a lot of people might be concerned to know the history of these individuals. But there is no buts there. It's he these people allegedly committed these acts. I have not done any of the things that people make up about me because they know their candidates are dirty. So what do? They have to try to drag my name down to their level so that I engage in that type of politics. And that's not me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. This is the first time I'm running for public office because I think I can do better than the incumbents.
Well, it just seems to me like Carbone just fits. He was a
Oh yeah.
dirty cop, allegedly, and now he can be a dirty politician.
It's an easy transition for him. And for some of his supporters, they've even admitted that, yeah, we know about his history, but we don't care because he supports us. Or in one of their cases, they actually,
What's he supporting? That's us. Like, what is he supporting for them?
oh, he's a member of the Pocono Lions Club. And he helps support various animal rescues. So
Well, that's a good thing.
it is a good thing. It's a great thing. But if you support an animal rescue, then obviously you should have a sense of humanity towards your fellow man, your fellow animals. If you can treat puppies humanely, why can't you treat the citizens of New York City that way when you served as a police officer for 20 something years? What makes a puppy better than a man on the street? Someone has to tell me that. I need to know someday why your Humane Society experience in the Pocono Lions Club makes you a better person, but what you've done to your fellow man is excusable. I can't understand that.
So, if both of these guys were to win the primary and win general, that means they would spend 12 years
Yeah.
as a township supervisor.
Yes.
That's almost teenager, if you think about it.
Mhm.
So if someone were to have a baby on day one when they took over as supervisors, took over office as supervisors, their kid would be 13, almost a teenager by the time.
I'll do you
Um,
one better. My son is 4 years old. After 12 years, he'd be 16 years old
yeah.
by the time they'd be able to almost get him enlisted in the military. He'd be 18. He'd be driving by the time these two individuals are gone and left our community. And as if they don't decide to continue to drag us all down. We've spent 6 years. It's really been a rough 6 years in our township. We've all of the community has fought very hard to survive COVID, to survive the financial collapse of 2008. Interesting enough, one of the incumbents moved here in 2008, and reason why he got his property so cheap is because of the financial crises we were facing back then.
Would that be Brendan Carroll?
That would be David
Oh,
Carbone.
that's David Carbone. Okay.
Yeah, Brendan Carroll has a long history within Tobiana Township. His father, Brendan Carroll Sr., helped develop the Pinecrest HOA, Pinecrest Development. Unfortunately for his father, he did end up having to deal with some legal issues for accepting bribes while he was a township supervisor. But
Brendan's father did, or Brendan?
Brendan's father did.
Oh, okay.
While he was a township supervisor, he was accepting bribes for exchange for the sewage treatment plant that they built in Pinecrest. While supervisor, he was convicted of that. But again, that was his father. That wasn't him. So, not saying the apple falls that far from the tree, but you know, it is what it is. So he has a long history in our township, unlike David Carbone.
Well, David Carbone's only here because he had to leave allegedly had to leave a situation where he was a part of a lawsuit for $1.25 million.
And that's only one of the two lawsuits. But yes,
You're going up against the two incumbents, and then there are two other candidates, including yourself.
yes, that's correct. Yes. Ed and Troy are both members of the Tobiana Township Volunteer Fire Department, and they're running to support their fire department. I'm running to support my full community and more than just my fire department.
Right. All right. Well, good deal. And May 16th,
Yes.
whoever you guys are voting for, make sure you get out and vote. Mike wants you to vote for him. You make your decision.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.